She's still laughing.
That's so funny. Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up, because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today.
Welcome to another episode of 5 Lemons Laughing. We are so excited to have you here, listening and being with us, letting go of all dimensions of time and space, and just know that we are with you and you are with us. Today, we are talking about healing our minds and loving ourselves and what that looks like. How are we changing our minds and how does that affect our body? And so what does that mean? Like, what does that even mean? Like, what is that about? Changing our minds. Anybody have an answer? Want to start us off? No. Okay.
I have a joke. No.
I do think that it's important in this arena to really recognize that we're not talking about like how much more you can work out or what makeup you can buy to feel better or, you know, what surgery or clothes or all that outside stuff. We're really talking about feeling good about all our outside stuff, how we are in the world. Our body feels good. Our body feels strong and healthy. And in A Course in Miracles, it talks about that work is in your mind. That work is improving your self-acceptance, working on your self-love, being kind and gentle and loving to yourself, knowing that when there's unworthiness, when you feel unworthy, to work on that worthiness. And then that energy and those feelings reflect in our physical world. So let's talk about those stories. Like, how do you do it? What do you do?
Yeah. Or
Well, I just want to.
Has that happened for any of you?
I just wanted to back up 1 second. And when you were talking about that, Melissa, it reminded me, a long time ago, somebody said, like, how clean your car is reflects what's going on in your mind. And so sometimes when we'd be interviewing people, I would go out and look at their car.
Yes.
Inside the windows.
Yes.
Because the shit is in the car, right?
Oh my goodness, you sneaky thing, Penny.
But that was a long time ago. I'm way evolved since then. But you know, if you look at, you know, how I notice that when my mind is cluttered with not good things, that my environment gets a little cluttered too. So what's occurring on the outside is actually what's occurring inside my head. So I just thought that when you were talking about that, Melissa, it just reminded me of that. So I think that applies here.
It does. Yes, and it actually is really meaningful and that brings up something else that we can talk about as well. It's judging, right? Like, so what you were doing it's kind of funny, right? We all do it. You were judging someone by what their inside of their car looked like. So
I like to say that I was just getting some insight into them.
Okay. Oh, let's just say that's what we'll claim. So it does start like how are we judging our bodies? Like what are our thoughts? What is our self-talk right now? Yeah.
Sometimes it's not very nice.
No.
Yeah. I think the word that Melissa said that still rings true, and I know we talked about it a lot in the last episode, or at least she brought it up then as well, is worthiness and the beliefs that we're holding in our minds about ourselves that's really showing up, and who we are and how we present ourselves to the world. And I think that's really the key.
Yes.
It really is. I have spent, I must say, most of my life having some really strong attachments to my thoughts about my body, as if that really is who I am, my body. And a lot of that was confirmed and just enhanced by my whole life and how I showed up and how people responded to me. And it wasn't until I read the course that I understood that no, I was literally walking around looking for people to confirm what I thought about myself. It didn't happen the other way around, that they happened to see something that I didn't already feel about myself. Right. And so I think that, as Melissa stated, to go into yourself, into your thoughts, and dig a little deeper about what are you exactly really feeling about how other people see you, and try to pick that apart to understand, not necessarily where the beliefs come from, because you may never figure it out. It could be something as early as 2-3 years old, right? So I think the key is just understanding what those beliefs are, and to know that you are reinforcing them and that you are projecting it outwards and people are not projecting it onto you. I think is a good way to start thinking about that.
Yes.
You're like sort of in that confirmation bias where you're just looking for the evidence that confirms whatever you think about yourself, whether it's good or bad, and you're dismissing anything that contradicts what you're expecting to see.
Mm-hmm.
So it's self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
Yeah.
My brain just got scrambled a little bit. So, which
I love it when your brain
You're
gets
probably
scrambled.
not the only one.
so as I think back, I tend to say this a lot. So, so what was coming up for me? So just say it again, Drusilla. Just say that whole thing again.
So kind of in a nutshell, we tend to think that what everybody else sees, as far as them looking at us as a body, is merely coming from their thoughts about us, like they're actually seeing something, when really no, it's really coming from the feedback we're getting, is what we're projecting out, and it's being reflected back to us. Right. So if I think for myself that, for example, the only way that I'm going to have someone's attention is if I wear clothes that are tight fitting and I go out into the world, and that way they're going to pay attention to me. Well, I'm only going to notice people that are paying attention to me because I have these tight clothes on. And so it's just, yes. And I'm going to say, see, I told you people only pay attention to me when I have tight clothes on. Right. So it's really all coming from inside. And the course teaches us that everything we experience is really our projecting it out and being reflected back to us.
I like to say those are the glasses you wear. Like your unworthiness, you feel so much unworthiness. It's like those are the glasses you're putting on, the unworthy glasses. And that is what you're looking out of all the time. You're looking out and you're getting that confirmation. And also, like, you buy a red car and then all of a sudden you keep seeing red cars. But before you bought a red car, looked at a red car, that didn't really stand out to you. So you see what you want to see, or see what's important. And I always use the glasses thing, because then I know, I can change that.
Did that help, Amanda?
I'm scrambled.
It did. It did help, it helped smooth the edges a little bit, right? Because I started thinking, like, trying to think of examples in my life where that has happened, right? So, yeah. And it's interesting that you said go ahead, Drusilla. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, well, it's kind of like we all know the stories of people who have lost tons of weight, and they are literally, a size 2 or 4 or something, and they still think they need to lose weight because their mind is still telling them that they're this 200-pound person that they were before. Mm-hmm. And their minds can't, they haven't corrected the mind. They haven't healed their minds about their bodies.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you come up with any examples from your own life, Amanda, after hearing that from Drusilla?
My brain just isn't thinking that way. My brain keeps going to, and there's no right way. So I'm just claiming that I'm not wrong.
Sure.
My brain keeps going to, like, when I had a bad self-image about myself, when I thought that I was fat, in my mind, I would be looking at people that I thought were overweight and, like, judging them, right? Person, like, what does she eat? Donuts all day? So
I've done that.
Yeah, like, judging that. The biggest example is me constantly judging my mom as being overweight, right? I remember judging her and, like, asking her, well, why don't you just go to the gym? Like, you just constantly judging her for being overweight. And then that is, when I had my worst self images. That's how it manifested with me. Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Yes. So I'm going to try and clarify that in my mind. So now you're saying that you were projecting onto your mom what you were actually feeling about yourself.
Yes.
And you were trying to control your mom because you were out of control yourself.
Oh, I don't want to hear that.
I think that's my belief, because whenever I am out of control for myself, I tend to notice that I start trying to control others and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I don't want to hear that. La, 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 la. I totally agree with that. Yeah. I do.
Yeah. Yes, Amanda, I think that is a good point, because what it allowed our listeners to do is to see it from both perspectives.
Yeah.
So for the example I had about clothes only, people only paying attention to me if my clothes are fitted. Well, there is a chance that if someone did compliment me or say something to me about it, that was nice. It was perhaps that they felt good about themselves and how they looked in their skin. And, but we experience that all the time. Most people that feel really good about themselves, they compliment people all the time. That's a perfect example. They compliment people all the time. People who are not feeling good about themselves, they do feel judged and they don't compliment people as much,
And when the people when the people are feeling really good about themselves and I'm not feeling good about myself and they compliment me, I think that they're not being honest.
Genuine.
Because how could they see me that way if I don't feel good about myself?
Yes. More projection. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
As I'm listening to you all talk, I'm realizing, like, it is truly a revolutionary act to love your body and to love yourself in this society that profits from us not loving our bodies. And what has been huge in my life, like, I grew up, and I've referenced this on the show before, I grew up in the generation that was known for fat shaming. And I talked about the story before of when Britney Spears went back on tour after having a baby. and everybody fat shamed her. And going back 20 years later and looking at the photos of her, she's like a size 2 or a 4 or something. And she looks amazing. And everybody was talking about how chunky she was. And so I grew up in that generation. And then, in my 20s, I was managing a boutique in Seaside. And some of the young girls who worked for me were bigger girls, and they loved their bodies, and they didn't let their size dictate the way they dressed. They dressed like I dressed. They wanted to feel good. They wanted to feel sexy. They wanted to feel feminine, and they dressed accordingly, and they loved and celebrated their bodies. And it just like blew my mind wide open, and like really caused something to shift for me. And like, I went from being that person who was always looking and judging because that's what society taught me to do, to now, like, I scroll through TikTok and there's so many weirdos on there, and I just love them all. And I see all of their beauty, and I like, you know what I mean? And it's just like, and it's just been such a fun shift, and it's all just a subtle shift of the mind. It's just a subtle little paradigm shift that has huge implications and ramifications. And when you're loving and accepting other people rather than judging them, then it just opens the floodgates for you to be able to love and accept yourself too. We're all saying the same thing. I think the two go hand in hand.
I'm really getting ready to say something that I thought about that I haven't thought in a long time, but I can say I must have been that person because it came in my mind, but this is like major, major taboo and crazy these days. I remember either being in a training class or something where it was brought to our attention that people actually thought back then that you could not be overweight and be intelligent. That people would look at people if they were overweight as if they're less intelligent.
I just read something recently that is still the truth, Drusilla, that people see overweight people and they think of them as they must be stupid. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or not as intelligent as somebody that can keep their body fit.
Wow.
Yeah. Sad.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And as we heal, as we are learning to heal our mind, right? So my mind is going like, oh my goodness. So like this is still present in the world. Like, so, Penny, you just saw that. So what is it about our mind that is still seeing these cues from the world? Isn't that interesting, right? That's a little mind bender. And that gives pause. Like, what are we really? Like, if we were just to pause here for a second and really think about our self-talk, like, what are we telling ourselves? And what are we seeing in the world about what we're telling ourselves?
Well, I agree with a little bit of what Morgan just said, and it's fun to me to be able to witness so many people to be comfortable in their skin on social media. It really is. I mean, it just warms my heart. The same token, I know I mentioned in the last episode as well that I do still feel that the aspect of beauty and what it means, even though it's more inclusive, that the bar is still high. And there's a lot of young people, specifically young girls, that are still in the mindset that beauty is determined by what other people have to say about you instead of what's inside of you and what you're projecting outward.
I know, like, we are all reflecting on this. And I encourage the listeners to just pause and think about, what is yourself? What do you think about the majority of the people that you see, right? And how does that reflect about how you feel about yourself? Does it reflect about?
I feel like I'm talking a lot this episode.
I'm glad you're talking, Drusilla.
Yeah,
I love
do
it when you talk.
And
Yeah.
maybe I've spent a lot of time in my life with the body thing. Yeah. So it is a big one for me. But I was just thinking about, I know I mentioned that I recently joined the gym. Again, I've always been in and out of the gym for the most part, all of my life. But I recently joined with another mission. And I said that at the beginning of the year, it was going to be about a lifestyle change and not about my appearance. But I'm just thinking, I mean, there's so many more people in the gym and at the park than I've ever seen before. I would like to think it's because of the shift and being healthy, but I think it's the shift of what I just said. I think it's a social media push for people to look a certain way, and everybody wants to look like that. I don't know. That's just what came to me just now about how packed the gym is these days.
Maybe that's a new documentary, Drusilla, that you can do.
Sounds like a good idea, Penny.
Mm-hmm.
I agree to understand what's the motivation, which is the same. That would have been the question 20 years ago. Today, the question is, what's the beliefs that you're carrying around with yourself?
Mm-hmm.
That's truly motivating you to go to the gym.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation because something is coming to me that like my mind talk now, right? So for the last few years, I'm like, it's time to hit the pause button. It's time to relax. It's time to let go. It's time to reset and rest and like just stop. It's unplug, right? But my self-care is naps. And so like that's what I'm thinking. And my body is actually reflecting that now that we're having this conversation. So my body is softer, it's rounder, it doesn't have edges, it's relaxed. Like my being is more relaxed, and it is that's how I would describe my body, right? In a positive way. Before I would be punishing, right? I don't moving away from punishing thoughts. But it's interesting because that's where my mind has been, right? It's been to relax, it's been to reset, it's been to unplug, it's to regenerate, it's all that. And that's how I would describe my body right now.
And I love that you do it with such gentleness and love, and like, no, I don't hear any judgment in that.
Well, that's training, right? So that would be, let's jump into that. Like, how do we get from the judgmental, back when I was fat at a size 2, right? I was binging and purging, and I just really didn't like myself very much. And, oh, look, I'm so relaxed, and I'm so, I love and I want to embrace. And that's how my body is right now. It's just, so let's talk about that. How do you get from one to another? Anybody with some tips, tricks? How do you go from one mindset to another? And then there's this whole thing of, not judging. That's got to be a big part of it. It's judging.
Yeah. I think for me, it's a daily practice. I mean, it's not like a one and done. Like, oh, I'm going to take all those false beliefs and all those negative thoughts out of my mind and they're gone forever. It just doesn't work that way for me. I wish it did. Yeah. So it's like daily catching them and blowing them up and releasing more positive energy in my mind. Yeah, it's a daily practice. I mean, it's not something that I've healed from. I still judge. Okay, I'm just admitting it. I still judge. I still have a critical voice about myself and others, but I'm catching it a lot faster now. And it's like consciously being aware of it. I think a lot of times before I started this path, I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't even realize that I was judging people, everybody. And now I can walk down the street and I can say silently to myself, to others, like, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And that's like a fun little practice to do. You might want to try it, listeners. Just the next time you're out walking amongst people, just look at somebody and just say, I love you in your mind. And you might not want to say it out loud, but maybe you do. But you can just silently say it. And it just kind of changes the whole vibe. It really does.
I love that. It makes me think of there's some accounts on TikTok that go around just like shouting compliments at people as they're walking by, and just the way that their whole energy shifts and they light up, and you can like just see them radiating out that beauty is so sweet. And like, yeah, you can have that same impact on people without ever even speaking it out loud, just with the power of your like silent blessing. I love that, Penny.
Well, and I do it too, especially when I catch myself judging them, because that's my interrupt, because I don't really want to judge them. I really want to love them. And so, yeah, that's my contrary action to take.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Penny, I do the same. And it's mostly when I catch myself judging, then I say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. And it does shift things. Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah. And the more that, well, I find in my experience, I think this might be a universal principle. The more that we can choose to recognize beauty, the more beautiful we will feel. So like I went through a period of time where I was just going around telling everything, you're beautiful, like even the plants and the flowers and, like in my head, sometimes out loud if I was on a walk by myself, but mostly in my head. And I like the way that this little practice came to me, it was like, every time you're telling something or someone you're beautiful, you're telling it to yourself, because we're all one. So it's like, that's how everything is interconnected, and why what we're saying is our experience. When you judge someone for being overweight, you feel judged for being overweight. When you judge someone as being beautiful and radiant, you feel more beautiful and radiant. Like that's how that works.
And it's so interesting. I love the way this conversation going is, because that's how it happened for me too. It was easier for me to stop judging other people and to look at other people differently. It was a lot easier to do that than to try to change my personal self-talk to myself.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, I chose the easiest way to do it. And the easiest way to do it, I love what you're saying, Morgan, because I totally love all the trees that I walk by, and, like picking something that it's easy to let go of judgment for. That's how I did it. And then gently moved into the people around me, because I've always loved people, right? I've always loved community. I would tell people if that, if they were thinking about being a massage therapist, the first thing I would say is, do you love all people? And if they said no, then I'm like, don't do it. So that was easier for me than turning off the negative, like shaming myself for overeating, right? Like, cause like that was, or whatever I was doing, adding that level of shame to myself. I started on the outside. Because this conversation initially was about changing our mind, right? This is about changing our mind and how that reflects in our bodies.
Yeah. What's going on in your mind, Melissa?
Oh, I'm just listening. I'm enjoying listening. And I'm nodding. I'm doing a lot of agree with everyone. And I think that for me, mine has just come with my spiritual work. Like I really do think it's been healing my unworthiness and healing my shame and healing my insides, on a mind level, not my guts, but just healing me, healing my person. And then everything aligns, everything.
Do you have a little tip for the listeners on how you've went about that?
Well, I have mentioned this before, and this is really true. I wore a rubber band on my wrist for two years. And when I would see myself judging someone or catch myself, I would snap it, and not as a punishment, but as like a pattern interrupt. Just that's just how I did it. And it really, really did help me to change what I felt was such a deep pattern of judging people. And now I'm doing a lot of reading and everything about oneness and about the universe. And so now exactly what you all were saying, the pattern interrupt for judging people, just like your blessings to people, mine is I am you and you are me. And I do that a lot, especially when I do it even with political people that I am different from, because I'm really trying to learn that we're all one. So it's been very helpful for me.
Wouldn't that be so nice if the world just woke up one day and realized that we were all one? Yeah. Wouldn't it be just such a different place to live?
Yeah. Well, and some of the time I do catch myself judging people's bodies, especially if they're much bigger than mine. And that's always been my worry of getting, getting really big and then people rejecting me. That's the bottom line for me. So especially those people, like I am you. I've been probably where your mind is, I'm assuming, but it's powerful for me to say I am you to someone that I would really think I don't want to be like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's interesting about that is the big three issues that people struggle with, one or two or all three, is finances, relationships, or body stuff. And the people where the body stuff is their big one in this life experience, they wear it. It's a billboard. They're everybody knows that that's their thing. Whereas those of us for whom maybe it's relationships or maybe it's finances, we get to tuck that little shame away and hide it from the world. You know what I mean? We don't have to walk around with the big scarlet A. So that's really interesting.
And the people who are also the opposite of what we would think, unhealthy, the opposite, the people that are just very consumed by their whole body and their whole everything out in the world and, looking good in a bikini or whatever it is. It's the same thing. It's, it's that I'm going to work and fix everything on the outside so I feel good inside.
Mm-hmm. And I'm realizing I'm having all kinds of realizations during this conversation. I'm so glad. My judging others is shifted a little bit, right? It's subtle. It's subtle. It's not gone. And I definitely am not judging others as much as I used to. And now I hear myself going, that girl needs to eat a biscuit, so my judging is changing. And I'm so glad we're talking about that, because that's no bueno either, right? It's no bueno. I love that.
Acceptance is your answer to everything today.
Mm-hmm.
Just accepting everyone for who they are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, what's interesting is like, so when I was 29, under 30, I was like stick straight and very slim and had no curves and just was super thin, super skinny. And then when I turned 30, my hips popped out. I'm pretty pear-shaped now. Like my hips go pretty wide and I've got a big, nice booty for someone my size. But whenever I say this to someone, like whenever we're having a conversation about health or body or whatever, for whatever reason, if it comes up and I say something about, well, I have big hips and a booty, I'm not saying it in a way of like judging myself, but people always say, no, you don't. You have a beauty. And I'm like, I got a beautiful body, girl. Like, but self-deprecating about it. Like, it's okay to have a full figure or to have a big booty or and it doesn't mean, I don't know what I'm saying, but it's just interesting the way society is programmed to think that anytime you acknowledge something about your body, you're doing it from a place of shame. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's so funny, Morgan. Like, I don't say anything about myself anymore, right? Because it can be taken like isn't it funny? Like I'm worried about other people's interpretations. I don't want them to interpret anything, so I just don't say anything about myself.
I kind of feel the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost like it's taboo to really like love your body in a way. You know what I mean? Like you get the juxtaposition of this like wellness culture of love your body, love yourself, but then the flip side is like it's also like kind of taboo to love your body if it doesn't look a certain way or fit a certain prototype. I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, and there's a lot of people out there telling us that we shouldn't be bragging about ourselves, right? Yeah. Gosh, I can remember was so pivotal in I couldn't believe it. I was recording some stuff, making a video for this school that my kids went to. And this is like 20 years ago. And we were doing a Thanksgiving celebration thing. And so people were saying what they were thankful for. And one of the girls, I think she was a 6th grader, said, I am thankful for my body and I love my body. Or she loved herself. Or she goes, I'm thankful for myself and I love myself. One or the other. Both of them were just beautiful. And then the teacher said, wow, you shouldn't even be saying that, on the videotape or something like that. She just like shot her down. And I just wanted to look at that teacher and go like, what in the hell are you doing?
Oh my gosh.
This is when kids' minds are shaped. And she said that. It was just really sad. So I still think about that often, like, that is just not right. I think it's okay to love yourself, I know it's okay to love myself. And it's not a bragging type of thing. It's not I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's not like you're trying to make yourself better than. Yeah. And she was just a really innocent young girl.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to say that.
Yeah. That goes back to our power of the word conversation that we had a couple of episodes ago. Like, and I almost said something judgmental. I almost said shame on that teacher. I don't want her to have shame. I don't want her to have shame. Taking it back.
Yeah.
Delete.
Yeah. Because somewhere, like, that's the whole point, right? Having compassion with our own mind talk, right? Like, don't beat yourself up for beating yourself up. Like, that is practicing, right? Because in that teacher's history, did someone shut her down like that?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was right for her to say that to the little girl, but, that's part of us retraining our minds.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point.
Yeah.
What a rich conversation. Wow. We could go on and on about body stuff.
Well, I'll say something to let us all off the hook. How about we don't know what the hell we look like anyways? Everything that we know about ourselves is a reflection from something that was man-made.
Amen, sister. Amen.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So I've never seen myself. I don't know what the hell I look like.
You're gorgeous.
Yeah.
You're beautiful.
I'll just take your word for it. How about that?
Okay.
Well, let's take a look at a couple of Post-its. How does that sound? Unless somebody has some final wise words after this beautiful podcast.
I want to offer a little tip that I recently learned. It sounds so basic, but I have a lot of like books that I'm reading and classes that I'm taking and podcasts that I listen to, and I have a short attention span. And I recently learned that if I speed up the playback time to 1.25, or if they're really slow talkers, even maybe 1.5, then it holds my interest longer. So, we're having real conversations with pauses while we reflect on what we'd like to share. So if any of our listeners become impatient with us, why don't you go ahead and change that playback speed to 1.25 and see if it enhances your listening experience.
I do that all the time too, Morgan.
Good.
I love it.
My family gets in the car and they say, "Oh my God, Mom's listening to it at 1.2 again." Yeah. Okay, so the Post-it is my work is in my mind.
Yay.
That's the first one.
Yay.
And I am you. You are me. I love that one.
It makes me think of a Beatles. Isn't there a Beatles song that's like, I am you and you are me and we are we and we are all together. Something like that. That made me think of.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And then I loved what you were saying about beauty. The more we recognize beauty, life becomes more beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, really deep conversation and mind blowing. Like Amanda was saying, there's lots to unpack with some of these topics, and we're really happy that you are all with us because, we don't have it figured out, folks. We're unpacking it right along with you. We are not scripted. So anyway, thank you for joining us today. And this is episode 91. And we are just so grateful and thankful that you joined us. And so go out and see the beauty in everything that you come across today and just see if that changes your attitude. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.